So where did you rank the X-Men movie in your list? The first one.
First one, I put it, I guess, smack bang in the middle. I put it at number 8.
Okay.
So
14. That would be the equivalent of like mid or good, right?
Yeah,
somewhere around
there. I'd probably put it at just. Oh yeah. Well, no, this is your list, so you put it where you want.
I'm thinking.
So I put mine out of 8. Out of 14.
I think it's ridiculous to put it at excellent. I definitely wouldn't put it there.
No. It's like if you watch it, it's dated, but it's still fun. Like it's the one out of the older ones where you're watching like, oh, this is pretty dated. Definitely feels like it was made.
I'm trying to think back to the last time I watched it. It's been a few years since I've watched this movie. This is the one with like when Storm is like, you know what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning or whatever. That's the first movie. So, I'm going to stick it in mid for now. I'm not totally solid on leaving it there yet as we go through the list. But we're going to leave it in mid for the moment. Because I don't know, chat. What do you think? Mid, really good. What are we feeling for this one? I'm very curious. Very curious. All right. X2. Now, this one I think is a much superior film to the first one. And I think the opening sequence with Nightcrawler alone kind of easily puts it above the first film. But I don't know if that means it's excellent or not.
You know, people still to this date don't understand why he was attacking the White House.
They still don't know.
The movie explains it, and they wonder why Nightcrawler was doing something evil at the beginning of the movie, and then why he turns good. It's like, did you not watch the fucking movie?
I mean, it's the whole. That's the story
point of the movie. It's the whole point of the movie. And they still don't understand it. I saw it on Twitter the other day because I was like going through like classic X-Men scenes. I'm like, and they said, "Oh, I recently watched the movie. Why was he bad at the beginning?" I'm like, "What?" They like focus in on him having the circle on the back of his head.
Right. All right. So we're gonna put this in the really good. Chad, is this right or wrong? Is this right or wrong?
Do you want to know why I put mine?
No. You put yours at the top, didn't you?
Second. It's second on my list.
That's why I'm torn. I'm torn because I feel like it's so early to do an excellent, but this movie is really good. Should it go up to excellent? I can be peer pressured on this one. I feel like it is close enough to be excellent, but I don't know if that's necessarily where it needs to be. Excellent. Ethan says excellent. All right, you guys convinced me. I'm okay with being bullied. I did. Okay. Unfortunately, the next one, which is The Last Stand, even though it has some really fun elements in it, I think Last Stand is mid.
It's you know where I have it on my list?
Where?
12th out of 14th. I have it the third worst out of these.
I don't think it's great, but I like some of the stuff in it.
I just think because if they fumble the Dark Phoenix.
Okay. Convince me that it needs to go down to the bottom. I'm curious. Tell me why. Tell me why you would put it at the bottom, or why it's at the bottom of your list.
Well, it's just a bloated movie. It should have just been Dark Phoenix, and even then, it would have been really trying to rush that storyline. But they mix it in with that other storyline from the comics, with like the trying to take away the mutant gene and stuff like that. It was all over the place. Mm-hmm. And like I don't. It shouldn't be so much of a surprise because like Bryan Singer was meant to direct it, and then he did Superman Returns with Brandon Routh instead. So they had someone.
Is this the one where they killed Cyclops at the beginning?
Cyclops dies in like the opening 20 minutes, whatever it is.
Wait, they killed Cyclops? Yeah, bottom. Sorry, I remember that was awful. That was at the beginning of this movie. What a dumb thing to do. So fucking stupid. Yeah, I'm gonna put it at the bottom. I'm sorry. That's going to the bottom. All right. So that's the OG trilogy taken care of. It's funny how widely different those films are.
Yeah, I had it third last. I was shocked when he put it at mid. I'm like, no way, Eric's putting this.
Yeah, no, I had to think about it. You're right. Like, that's also the one where the Juggernaut chases Kitty Pryde and goes, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!" Right? That's in that one. Yeah, that's no. Okay, now we're gonna jump into the next series of like the prequel movies that jumped around in time or whatever. And this contains probably one of my favorite films out of all of these X-Men films, and that is First Class. I'm putting it at excellent. That's in the top tier for me.
I agree. I have it at it's third on my list. So your excellence are my second and third choices so far.
Yeah. I think that this movie for me, even though it isn't a perfect like X-Men film, I think there's a lot of weird, like because of the original films, they had to change the way the origin of the X-Men came to be in terms of which characters were there. I will say this was the beginning of the Mystique is the best character ever era, and I didn't like that part of it. But everything else, we got like like I love Ian's Magneto, but Michael Fassbender's Magneto I think was also really strong.
Yeah, I think James McAvoy, Professor X, and Fassbender as Magneto are, I think, some of the best castings, especially in regards to like the stuff that they have to like tackle and stuff like that. I think like
Right.
yeah, and the only thing like there's like nothing. Yeah, it's incredibly rewatchable as well. This movie, it's really, really rewatchable.
Well, because it's a jumping off point. You don't have to know a lot of stuff.
Well.
Like you can literally like jumping. Like you can just
Ethan agrees with me, saying he thinks it's the most rewatchable one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one might be controversial because I think there are problems with this movie, but I think there are portions of the film that are brilliant, like the opening sequence with Days of Future Past, the opening sequence where we get all the characters together and we're in the future and all of that. I think there's moments of brilliance in this movie, but there's also big issues with the film in terms of pacing and stuff like that. But I think overall, the big moments outweigh the issues with like pacing and stuff. I would say Days of Future Past is in the excellent category.
Well, Eric, we're lining up pretty well so far, but you might disagree with my thing. I have this as my number one.
I don't have a problem with that.
This is my favorite X-Men
movie. For me, the First Class and Days of Future Past are interchangeable 1 and 2s for me. I don't really have a
Okay. Days of Future Past 1, X2 is number 2, and First Class is number 3 so far.
Okay. I thought the great thing about this movie was this was the first time we had seen a franchise try to blend 2 different eras together seamlessly. And that's why I think it wasn't perfect. There's some stuff in it that I don't think worked. But I have to give them credit for just the sheer attempt to like do what they did. And again, I like the stuff in the future. I think it's really cool. And
like, you got to realize this is something that if the MCU did it now, it would be seen as ambitious. Like this trying to like some form, like this is essentially what Secret Wars is going to be, but obviously on a bit of a larger scale, obviously, but like mixing old and new.
Yeah.
They did this in 2015, 2016, whenever it was. When was Days of Future Past? Like 2015, 2016, something like that.
I can tell you right now. I've got it.
I know the Wolverine's 2013. I know that came out in 2013.
2014. It was actually.
It came out the year after. Okay.
Yeah.
Like this is a period where pretty much you're almost getting an X-Men movie once per year.
Right, which honestly that consistency would have helped them if they would have continued doing that. Which I think the origin films were intended to come out in the off years. So I think it was supposed to be like X-Men movie, origin movie, X-Men movie,
First
origin
Class movie. Is pretty much that happened because X-Men Origins Wolverine didn't work, but we're meant to get a Magneto origin movie.
Right.
Which essentially would have been a decent chunk of what First Class is.
Okay. So next up in this franchise is X-Men Apocalypse. What are your thoughts on X-Men Apocalypse?
Well, I'll tell you why I have it on my list. It's 10th out of 14.
Okay. So not very favorable, but not at the very bottom.
It has some really good. Here's the thing: both Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, I think, have some really good stuff in them. Apocalypse more than Dark Phoenix, but it's just very messy. Like they're trying. Like I've always viewed those two movies should have been a trilogy. Those two storylines should have been a trilogy where the first two movies are essentially the Apocalypse one, but mixed in is the whole thing happening with Jean Grey and Dark Phoenix. And your third one is the full on. She's already like she is Dark Phoenix at that point. Like,
yeah,
and she's already been doing that through parts of 2.
I actually think we should have had Phoenix should have been in this film. Like we should have had that Phoenix transformation in this movie.
Yeah, and it's the biggest issue because they set that up at the end, but you're spending a lot of this movie not only trying to develop Apocalypse and tell his backstory and then his resurgence. You're trying to build up the Four Horsemen, which also includes bringing in Storm and trying to do her thing as well as those other characters. But then you're trying to focus in on Cyclops now, and like all these, like they're trying to like give these new introductions to these characters. Like the best character that works outside of like I guess Professor X and Magneto is probably Quicksilver, because we already met him in Days of Future Past.
I'll be honest, Quicksilver was kind of, those scenes are like the shining moments in almost all the movies that they're in.
And the stuff with Magneto and Professor X and Mystique to an extent. Like some of the stuff. Anyone that was really in first
What
class,
did you think of Apocalypse in this movie, though? Like, what do you, as a character?
They probably should have made him CGI.
Okay. Like a
Maybe
Thanos situation?
Yeah. I was going to say maybe it was too early, but this was like, what, 2015, 2016? Infinity War is, what, 2 years after this? So... As I said, it's just development. It's just it's
well,
like
in the movie, you have to remember, Paige, in the movie they actually make him bigger. They do that with CGI in the movie, so
yeah,
they could have done that.
Yeah, it's just like, as I said, I think those two movies of Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix should have just been a trilogy. I know what you would have called them. I know, like, because I know X-Men something, and then the second one was maybe X-Men Apocalypse, and the third one is Dark Phoenix. But the first and second should have been this Apocalypse storyline and showing.
Chat, are you comfortable with that in mid, or should I be moving it down? Because I feel okay putting it in mid, because I do think there's some good stuff in the movie, but I could see an argument for it to be in the bottom.
I have it 10th. I don't think it warrants being in bottom. I'd probably put it at mid because it's got some decent stuff in there. I also what's the other thing in Apocalypse I like? Oh, the Wolverine scene, the Weapon X one. That's really good, and that's like the first one, like, because this was before Logan and there's like blood.
Yeah, when they're in the facility and he's wearing the actual suit from the comic books and everything.
Yeah, like the actual Weapon X thing. That's a really good scene, and like that's where you get blood and stuff. Obviously, there's the Quicksilver scene. Actually, quick thing: which Quicksilver scene do you prefer, Apocalypse or Days of Future Past?
That's a good question. I wish I could pull them up and play them, but they both have music in them, so you can't really do that. I would say probably Apocalypse. I think
Apocalypse on its own is good, but I think when it first happened, Days of Future Past, because you didn't know it was going to happen, and then it just goes into this slow thing. But yeah, I do agree with like Darth, and it was new in Days of Future Past, so it wasn't too much of a surprise when they did it again in Apocalypse, and they made it more like poppy and stuff with sweet.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and I don't know where you have it, but this is in the bottom for me. Dark Phoenix.
I have Dark Phoenix as number 13 out of 14. It's my second.
What a fucking awful missed opportunity. And I'm going to stand by this as somebody who grew up reading X-Men comics. The biggest mistake that they do with these Phoenix movies or whatever. And Last Stand, no surprise, the Dark Phoenix storyline was also in that film. The biggest mistake that they make with these movies is they don't realize that Phoenix was Phoenix for a much longer time than she was Dark Phoenix. And that is why when she becomes Dark Phoenix, it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard to do in movies. The Phoenix storyline, at the very least, needs to be 2 films.
Yeah, but
you have a movie with her as Phoenix and then a movie with her as Dark Phoenix. And arguably, she only needs to be Dark Phoenix for the second half of the movie.
Yeah, but do you agree with me where like that should have been a trilogy where it's somewhere it's just those 2 storylines of Apocalypse and the Dark Phoenix one? I don't know how they would have like logistically done it, but it needed to be over 3.
I actually think that if they're going to make it so Jean Grey has always had the Phoenix inside of her, and that's the storyline they're going with, okay, locked into that. I don't necessarily like it, but I'm okay with them doing that. Then she should have been Phoenix in Age of Apocalypse and then turned into Dark Phoenix in Dark Phoenix. Why do we have all of that happen in Dark Phoenix instead of just giving her the powers of Phoenix to defeat Apocalypse? That would have made the most fucking sense, would have been just to make that happen before the last 5 seconds of the film. Yeah. Like, have her at some point during the movie start to experience these powers and really use them. Get the new costume, not totally understand what's going on, and then have her defeat Apocalypse as Phoenix. And then that is the beginning of the Dark Phoenix movie. And then eventually she gets consumed by the hunger of the Phoenix, and then she gets taken over by it. And then we get the Dark Phoenix storyline. At the very least, it should have been 2 films. I hate that both Phoenix movies that we got they tried to cram it all into one movie. It just didn't make any sense to me. Look, so Ethan, this is the thing, right? This comment here. This is the part that bugged me about it. When we get to Dark Phoenix, it's like she has to get the powers all over again. You know what I mean? Like we get that in that beginning scene in the space. It's supposed to be a nod to her, like origin of the Phoenix Force and everything. We get that nod at the beginning of the movie, but then we just what happened at the end of Apocalypse then when we saw the Phoenix inside of her? Like what does that even mean? It was so convoluted. It was handled so poorly.
Cam says about the 2-part that apparently that was the plan, but then like they just didn't let him do it, and he had to crash, which makes you wonder like why even bother with it then.
But this is why I have a lot of hope for the Marvel Fox type X-Men movies. I mean, is I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they look back at the Phoenix storyline and go, if we're going to do this one, we cannot make the same mistakes they made twice.
You got
twice they did it.
Yeah, you got to let it marinate,
right,
and then slow cook, and then glaze it. But yeah, I put that at second last just because I think it deserves to be there.
X-Men Origins Wolverine, bottom tier. Is that right or wrong?
I have it at 11th out of 14. I think it's better than Last Stand.
You think it's more mid than bottom?
I actually think this movie isn't that bad. I think it's if you take out the Deadpool thing, I think it's mid.
I'll be honest. That's all I'm really remembering in my mind. That's all I can see is how.
If you go rewatch the movie, there's actually some really decent stuff. Of course, the CGI is not great, and it was made during the writer strike, and they decided to push through it rather than just hold off until then. But the only thing that, to me that's really bad in the movie is its interpretation of Deadpool. I think the first half of this movie is really, really good for the most. Well, not I don't want to say really, really good, but pretty good.
So tell me what parts in the first half of the movie you like, so I can adjust.
Obviously, the stuff when it's is this meant to be like a take? Like, is it meant to be a take on X-Force or something? Like the beginning of like
I think so, yeah. With like military showing its history with all the characters, yeah,
all the different mutants. Yeah. That's great. I think that's done really well. I think the stuff with him and Sabretooth when we get to the present day and stuff, and that opening, like the opening fight with him and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So the Sabretooth stuff was. I'm going to put this in mid. I don't think it's bottom. I do think the Deadpool stuff is shit.
I think the Deadpool stuff is really bad, but I think the stuff that's actually an origin of Wolverine and how he becomes Wolverine and gets a part of the program and stuff, and then gets the adamantium, everything. I think is it Team X, whatever. I knew it was something X. I knew it was. I wasn't. Well,
it's the weapon. It's the Weapon X program. So that's kind of what it was going. So yeah.
But I was sort of disappointed we didn't see like Liev Schreiber come back as Sabretooth, especially in the Void. I think that would have been better to have him there. Maybe he didn't want to do it. I don't know. But yeah, I thought it's just the stuff, the Deadpool stuff. I think like if they didn't do that, I think this movie isn't as obviously as I said, the CGI wasn't great, but. Yeah, like even like the thing where they go in to get the adamantium, and like get the
I think Feather. I want to be very clear. The stuff with Deadpool prior to what happened to Deadpool at the end of the movie, I think had some sort of like.
And the thing is that he's there for a reason. Like I think they mention it in the movie from memory that he's there because of the cancer and stuff like that. Like he gets cancer, and that's why he goes back into the program to. Potentially get healed.
So there is some solid stuff there. It's just
the end result. And the thing is, I know there's the end credit scene where he ends up having his mouth back and stuff like that. It would have been interesting to see, but they'd already done enough. They changed him. Like he had like the actual swords that came out of his
and he had the optic blast from Cyclops.
Well, it was even the thing where he had like he was like a computer. Like they were typing stuff into a computer,
and he could teleport.
And he had like like cameras in his eyes or something. They could see what he was saying. There was just weird stuff. They went too far with it. I wouldn't have actually minded it if they had it where his mouth was sewn up, but then it ripped open or something and he started talking. But then again, he was like fully evil. He was brainwashed. The Deadpool stuff is really not done well at all. Outside of, I do like the fact that he can teleport because can't he teleport in the comics?
I think there's iterations of him that could. I don't know if it's like the main canon Deadpool anymore.
Okay,
I'll be honest. Everything beyond like the 90s and stuff with Deadpool, there's been so much of it. I don't really know everything.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure there is a thing where he can teleport, and that's in the movie, and it's obviously not in the Deadpool movies, him teleporting.
I think it was technology, though. I don't think it was a power.
Oh, maybe it might have been, yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, I missed 10. Oh, no, 11th out of 14. Sorry.
Cody says, I know many are scared of MCU X-Men because of casting. I'm a little nervous about that as well. But I think the success of Deadpool... So, I'm going to reiterate this. I think the success of Deadpool and Wolverine pretty much solidifies that Hugh Jackman will be part of the story somehow, some way moving forward. Probably in a mentor role. I wouldn't be surprised, because you got to remember, Wolverine is the oldest character on the X-Men. Even when they reboot in 1975, he's been around for a long time. Now, obviously he doesn't look as old as Hugh Jackman looks because of his healing factor, but this is real life, and he's an actor that's older. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to keep Wolverine around as an older character with the rest of the X-Men. But I don't know if they're going to do it that way, or if they're just going to keep him around as a mentor character and let Laura be like the Wolverine. Do you think that's what's going to happen? That character will be Wolverine, and that he'll be like the
I think
mentor Wolverine or something?
I don't know. I think they'd still want him to be Wolverine in some case but I just don't see how they can there's a couple of characters which I just don't know about them. Like, I thought this is a character like Jubilee. I don't know if people are overly attached to like the Jubilee from the X-Men universe, or even Mystique to an extent. If they cast a really good actress, though Jennifer Lawrence could still play the character if they wanted to, but I think she doesn't want to. And like, that was a big drama there. I think there's just a couple where, like, I think Cyclops is maybe one where people would just go, James Marsden. But even then, I think it's probably Professor X, just because, once again, James McAvoy could still play the character. Michael Fassbender could clearly still play Magneto if they wanted him to. I
mean, he could even be a more accurate Magneto as he's gotten older now. I mean, they could make him more of that.
There's some things there where I'm like, Halle Berry maybe a Storm, just because. But even then, I don't know if that's necessarily like one where like they wouldn't be able to find someone. I'm sure they would be able to. I do think it's sort of weird that the one that they've locked on outside of Wolverine is Beast. Like, Kelsey Grammer is Beast. But then again, I guess he has the voice for Beast. It's not like because they're going with like a fully CGI version.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do like they did in the Marvels, they could just make him a CGI character like Thanos. Where it's
when I mentioned Jubilee, I just mean like the attachment to the actress that played Jubilee in the previous ones, like because she's only in one of them. I don't even think she's in Dark Phoenix. She's just in Apocalypse, I think.
Yeah.
So it's just But yeah, I think there's only like Wolverine, of course, obviously Deadpool like, I guess technically you say Deadpool now. And I think with Daphne Keane, you probably just keep her as Laura because she's the age you'd probably want the character to be anyway. But I think they're better off using characters that either have people that don't really have an attachment to, or just haven't been in the X-Men, really. So I don't know who that is. It like any major X-Men like that they haven't used in that core group that you expect to start off with, like in
the core group? Do you mean like from the films or from the comics?
So ones that haven't appeared in films or have smaller parts in films that you'd expect to be seen as main X-Men in the MCU. So ones that you don't think people will get too annoyed by them being cast.
Havoc, I think Havoc could be recast, because I know he was in the first films or whatever. But I think that he's a character that people are not necessarily attached to that actor, I don't think, and I think they could really do something interesting with that.
The only one I can think of is Angel. That's the only one where I'm like,
Angel. Look. To be very clear, Angel got more interesting when he became Archangel. Anyway, the original Angel character was just basically a playboy. He was just a rich playboy with wings. And I know that it was like they did the whole storyline with him and the Morlocks and losing his wings and all of that stuff. And yeah, you could even do that. You could probably get an actor that could pull like the kind of emotion off that's needed for that. But ultimately, Archangel, like that character ends up becoming much more like Warren becomes much more interesting as a character once he has to struggle with that, I think personally. So, let me see here.
I'll tell you what, though, Pyro better have an Australian accent if he's going to be recast.
I'm looking at the list here. I think I'm going to shift some of these around when we're done because I think I'm thinking a couple things here. We'll see. So, The Wolverine. Now, this is going to be the first one in this category for me, but I think this movie is really good. I think it's a really good movie. I think there's some interesting stuff in there that I found to be intriguing. I didn't like the way they dealt with Silver Samurai being a mech and everything. But outside of that, I really liked the whole vibe of this movie. So for me, it's really good. Would you have this mid or really?
For me, it might seem low, but I agree with you in regards to really good because I think a lot of the top half here falls into it. But I have it at number 7.
Okay,
but I agree with you putting it in really good.
I mean, to be very clear here, I think this was the first after the blunder of the origin Wolverine movie. I think it was really good for them to kind of hone in on like that. The Japanese storyline with Wolverine and kind of try to give a nod to a lot of that. I honestly would have preferred Silver Samurai to just be Silver Samurai. I hated that it was a mech. I didn't really understand that. I think they were trying to capitalize on the success of the Transformer stuff. That's the only thing I can think of because what other reason would there be for them to make Silver Samurai a mech suit? Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like it was very Gundam. For some reason, maybe they were trying to take nods from like anime and manga with that one, but it was unnecessary. I think Silver Samurai from the comics is a character that gets overlooked a lot, and I just kind of hated that they went in that direction with them. But it is what it is. Darth Zen says action figures. Maybe that might have been the reason why. I think we had a super chat over here. Yeah, Staggervore with a $4.99 super chat. Probably an unpopular opinion, but I can see Hugh Jackman playing Deathstroke in a DC film. I don't know if I'd want that or not.
No, I think Hugh Jackman would play. I think it was like it would just be Wolverine. That's just.
I was gonna say, is he one of those actors now, like not typecast as Wolverine, but because he's played a lot, he's been in a lot of films and he's on Broadway and stuff. But I think when it comes to superhero stuff, I think he's Wolverine, right? I mean, that's kind of
Wolverine, just like how Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Like it's just like have fun, Marvel trying to recast Iron Man because it's probably just not going to work.
Yeah.
The same with the MCU. Like Kevin Feige's probably got the headache of it all the time. It's like, fuck, I wish this dude was 10 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably thinking that about Hugh Jackman. Please, even 5, but.
All right, so we have a poll going over here. Asked if they would keep Hugh Jackman. I typed it very quickly and misspelled his name, but if they wanted to keep him as Wolverine, and the poll says, "Wow, it's a little bit more down the middle than I expected." 57% said yes, 42% said no.
Gosh.
All right, well. I don't know. I don't see a problem with him as Deathstroke. I just don't know if people would accept him as Deathstroke, if that makes any sense. Let's see. All right. It's freezing up for me there. Victor says, Eric, you like Gundam. Any in particular? Is it kind of cliche to say G Gundam? That might be a little cliche. It's probably going to be everybody's answer, honestly. Or a lot of people would probably say it. Or some people are like, oh, no, that's touristy, maybe. Okay, so let's move along here. Okay, so Logan movie. Paige, you know this is going to get me in trouble probably, right?
Yeah.
Sign
your will.
All right, chat. Get your pitchforks out.
Now. Hold on. I'll say where I have it now because you're going to have the edgy take.
Tell me. All right, tell me.
I have Logan at 4th overall. Okay. Mainly because I don't like the X-24 stuff at the end. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I like everything else in this movie. I think it's perfect outside of the X-24 stuff.
I've never, ever talked about this movie in detail. Only in like dark, shady corners of places because of the fact that I know people love this film. And I know there's a lot of people that say it's their favorite X-Men film out of all of the Fox films and stuff like that. I don't think it's like a 10 out of 10. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, that's heresy or whatever. I think this movie, for me personally, is 2 films smashed into one. And you have the first half of the movie that I think is extremely well done. I pretty much love from the very beginning when he's like at the gas station and he's getting in a fight and all that. Like it sort of sets the tone for the movie. And then they're hiding out with Caliban and Professor X in the desert. And they're dealing with, all these characters that we don't really know what they are and what they're doing. And they're coming in and they're attacking and all this. Like we get a really good story in the first half of the movie. And I think at a certain point when the movie switches from that to a road trip, I start to lose interest in it. And I start to feel it becomes a little bit predictable. I start to question some of the motivations in the movie, some of the logic of the comic book stuff and everything. So for me, I cannot give it a 10 out of 10 excellent. But I think the movie is really good. I think it's a good movie. But it is not my favorite. It is not a 10 out of 10. So unfortunately for me, I'm putting it in really good.
And there is the Edge. People are wondering when was the Edge going to appear. The Edge has come.
It is not excellent to me. It's just not. I'm sorry. I can't put that as a 10 out of 10. So, I mean, I think the movie suffers in the back half of the film, especially the very end of the movie. I think like the last bits of the movie they just suffer. I get it. I get why people are emotionally attached to it. Wolverine was my favorite character growing up. And I've said this many times. I've never been 100% on board with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I've said that. That's not new, right? But I get people's emotional attachment to him as well. And I understand that. But things will turn around. You'll see here in a few moments. The things will turn around about my opinion of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. As we get into the Deadpool movies. Deadpool 1, excellent. Very top of the list for me.
I have Deadpool 1 at number 5. So one below Logan for me.
Yeah. I love Deadpool 1. It is an extremely rewatchable movie, in my opinion. I think it shows all of the care that Ryan Reynolds had in bringing this character to life. And I think it hits for me. I don't think there's a lot of misses in the first Deadpool movie. So... do you have any issues with that? You think I should bring it down?
I think it's pretty much what they seeked out to do or aim to do. They pretty much achieved. I know the third act gets questions because there's I think some logic issues. Like, don't they have like a carrier, like a Navy carrier? Like, how the hell do these guys have that? But I think, but outside of that, the action's done. It wasn't done on like a massive budget either. So, yeah. Okay. And I think they also do like an origin story really well.
Yeah. So that brings us to Deadpool 2.
This might be my edgy take of the day, but I'm not too sure. This might be the Logan.
I am teetering between here and here.
Oh, okay. Maybe it might not be edgy compared to.
I think Deadpool 2 is really strong. I like the additional stuff with Colossus and the Juggernaut. I think Cable is really good. I'm temporarily going to put it in really good, but I can understand if people wanted to put it in mid, honestly.
For me, it probably balances on like mid to really good. I have it at number 9 on my list.
Right. I think there's some great stuff in it, but I feel like Deadpool 2 suffered from trying to live up to the first movie.
Yeah, because you got a lot of the runtime in the first one is his origin, how he became Deadpool, and it's pretty straightforward as well. While this one, I think they tried to. Maybe they had a bigger budget and stuff like that, but I just don't think it works. It's still good, but I think out of the trilogy, I think it's clearly the weakest.
Okay.
If you include Deadpool and Wolverine.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. New Mutants, unfortunately for me, I wanted it to be really good because I love the New Mutants, and I think magic was amazing in the film. But overall, for me, this teeters between mid and bottom, and I think it's going to land in the bottom for me.
Well, the fact that you're teetering makes me concerned because this is rock bottom for me. This is number 14.
I think it is. I mean, I was going to try and make an argument for like the magic stuff because I think that was done really well at the end of the movie. But
she's the best. She is 100% the best part of this movie. I hope that they'd look at her and bring her over to the MCU and make her magic.
Well, I mean, it's Anna Taylor-Joy, right? Isn't that
Anya Taylor-Joy? She's like amazing in it. She's one of my favorite.
Is there any shock that she was the best part of this movie though? That's the thing.
The thing is that she's so good, and everything else is so boring.
Yeah.
Sure, she's racist, but
is she?
Well, she makes fun of like the Native American girl. Like she was like,
in the movie. Okay, yeah.
No, not the actress. No, the character.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait a minute. I don't remember her being racist, but
and the thing is that I remember watching the trailer. Oh, the Demon Bear is fairly cool. Demon Bear is cool. That's a big CGI bear.
No, the third act of this movie where she gets to do a lot of her stuff is the best part of the film.
Yeah, but that's what that ties into magic.
Yeah,
but everything else is just so boring. Like just every is it Sunspots in it? Boring. The Maisie Williams character. Boring.
Well, Sunspot is controversial anyway because they cast someone that doesn't really look like the character.
Yeah, and then like the guy from Stranger Things, boring. Like everything's so boring about it. And the thing is that I remember watching the trailer and I was thinking, oh, they're going full horror with this. You watch the movie, it's like the tiniest bit of horror. And I think that's the thing they tried. I think they must have thought they were balancing it out because it's a coming of age story to an extent.
Yeah.
But it's not balanced really well at all, and it just ends up super boring.
Let me see if I can.
Outside of magic, she's the best. If it was a magic movie, it'd probably be a bit higher on my list. But the movie as a whole is just not very good.
Yeah,
and also it makes you wonder, because they have the Essex Corporation or whatever it is, isn't it? And you wonder, and they just never. You feel like it might lead up to something bigger in the third act when it's heading to that stuff. But yeah, nothing. Really
so I just added an image on here of the poster for Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay, so this is my initial list, and Paige agrees with a lot of my choices. So I don't know how he feels about everything. Before we do our last ranking, is there anything that needs to be shifted here that you think could be moved around? Do you think the X-Men 1 movie needs to be moved into bottom, or do you think that's good where it is, or what do you think? What would you change if this was?
Well, I have X-Men 1 ranked above Deadpool 2 on my list. So
do you? Okay. All right. So you would say
I'll show my list after this. I'll bring it up on screen so you can show it.
All right. Logan needs to be put in excellent, not for me. All right. So this is the last one. We have Deadpool and Wolverine. Now I want to point this out and saying that this is not a 10 out of 10 movie for me, right? It's not a 10 out of 10. Logically, as a fan, it did everything that I wanted, right? So there's not a lot that I could ask for from this movie. I think it kind of nailed all of that stuff. I think it's better than really good though. But since we only have excellent and really good, and I think Hugh Jackman won me over as Wolverine in this movie. Totally changed my opinion of him as Wolverine. Partly because I think he was given stuff that made him really shine as Wolverine. I'm going to put it in excellent for me. But it could also go in really good. For me, it floats between excellent and really good. But it's a very rewatchable movie for me. So I feel like that's where it belongs. Like I feel like excellent is like 9 out of 10 or 9 and 10s to me. And I feel like this movie, like I said, when I ranked it, I said it was like an 8.5, but 8.5 doesn't really fit into really good. You know what I mean? It's more of like whether or not it's excellent or really good. So for me, I think excellent is where I'm going to leave it for now. What do you think? Where would you put this?
I just shared my list. So I put Deadpool and Wolverine at number 6 on my list out of 14. Right.
So yours would probably be in really good then if that were the list, correct?
Well, it's just below Deadpool 1.
Okay.
On my list.
All right. So that is my tier list for now. We might revisit this a little bit later. So if you're watching this video on playback or whatever and you want to leave your list in the comments, feel free to do so.